You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast on BQN. We're here to showcase the films you probably missed but should definitely check out, from independent and obscure to art house and absurd. Each episode will gather, perhaps cocktail in hand, to discuss it all. I'm your host, Shalimar, and with me today are Mark, Matt, and Laz. Hello, everybody. What are you drinking?
Hello.
Hi. Hello. Oh, we could have been a chorus. Like a barber shop. Hello, hello, hello.
Like a barbershop quartet.
Matt, what you got?
Go last, but water. Oh no.
As always, Laz Marquez staying hydrated. I am being very seasonal, and so my mother lovingly bought me some Fireball because she knows I love Fireball. I know that bartenders stick up their noses when I ask for it in a drink, but whatever. And I got some apple cider, and so I mixed my Fireball with some apple cider, and I'm feeling good.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah, see, it depends on what you put it in.
I've been told. All right. So, I made a Moscow Mule. It's not really on brand. I was trying to look up drinks from Sweden, and some of them had weird, because did the film take place in Sweden? I thought it was Sweden. Right? Sweden? Anyway,
yeah.
I didn't have some of the ingredients for the first few I pulled up, and I'm like, heck with it. I've got stuff for Moscow Mule. I'll just do that. So that's what I did.
Cool.
Close enough. I am doing my usual bourbon and Coke. And I can't remember what the bourbon was, but it's in a really pretty bottle, and it starts with a P. And that's all I've got for you.
Ooh.
But yeah.
Any lime?
That's my beverage. No lime. Just the basics. I'm very much about the basics.
I can dig it.
It's a job done.
Yeah. It does. And I don't really drink a lot of soda, so it's like my little excuse to have a little Coke. So I'm like, oh, it's healthier if I drink it with bourbon. That's my logic.
Kind of like the KISS effect. KSS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Keep it simple.
Is that a thing?
Soda with bourbon.
I've never heard that before.
Oh,
yeah. I used to hear that a lot at work.
I need to tell everybody that's applied for a job in my department lately that analogy, because the resumes that have been sent across my desk, oh my God, I'm seeing the New York City phone book circa 1997 when they still had phone books. It's just everything they've ever done.
Honestly, as I continue my job hunt, this is a good little nugget of wisdom. So thank you. Because I was always thinking the more information I put in, the more it makes me look good.
No, you want to do what you're the most proud of.
Keep it on one page, please.
Yeah. Or you could also do, if you're an artist or an actor, you could have a CV, right? I mean, I'm not sure what actors call it, but artists call it a CV. So you have your resume, and then your CV was just basically, in my case, a list of any show I've been a part of, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you could do that. So you could have two separate things.
Yeah.
That's my advice. I have no idea how being an actor goes. So have fun with that.
Well, day job stuff.
Yeah.
Day job resume, I'll just make sure I put OnlyFans at the very top.
That's smart. That's smart. That's how you really get the eyeballs on there, and the algorithm will just
right
in and top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't your representation tell you that you needed to really put yourself out there? So that could be it.
And there it is, in more ways than one.
Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit. We have this new little segment we wanted to introduce, and there's a new movie that came out this weekend. It's causing a lot of controversy on the internets, but we want to hear what our hosts thought of it. I know that I watched it. I think Matt and Laz watched it. So tell me, Matt, what did you think? You go first.
I will say that
the movie's The Marvels, by the way.
Oh, yes. That'd be such a smart thing to include.
In the segment.
Thank you, Mark.
Now showing.
Thank you.
So I really liked The Marvels. I thought it was very much an ensemble piece with all three main characters. It was a lot of fun. I think the stakes were still very present in the movie. I don't think that they undercut any of the emotional content. Sometimes I think in the older formula of Marvel, they would let the character have an emotional beat and then they would cut it with humor. Which I'm like, let us have the moment. But I don't think that was really present in this one. Characters were allowed to live and breathe, and there was still a lightness to it. There's an after credit scene that just made me scream. So I recommend going not just for the after credit scene, but being ready for a really awesome after credit scene. The fight choreography is beautiful. There's a beautiful fight scene in the very beginning of the film, because you can see in the trailer that these three characters, they cut back and forth in between each other, and the way that the fight scenes are filmed, with them not quite being able to manage this power of zapping in and out of certain places, the way it was handled was beautiful. That's all that I'm going to say. I was applauding at the end of that first sequence. Overall, I give it an A.
Amazing. What do you think, Laz?
I'm going to start with just saying, like, it is pure fun. Like, if you want, like, a fun Marvel experience, go watch this film. It isn't bogged down by, like, too much, like, exposition. It's not, like, over, wrought with, like, trying to tie into everything. But I think what it really succeeds in is the three female leads, which has been part of that controversy. So you have, Tiona Paris, you have Brie Larson, Iman Vellani, who is incredible. She's the star of the show, and she, like, kills it and brings such a vibe to this film. Like, I left the theaters feeling so joyous, and I can't really say that a theater experience has done that for, like, the past 3 years for me.
What was the controversy, if you don't mind me asking, with the female leads?
Women.
Yeah,
I think there's just a lot of toxic Marvel fans, and when the first Captain Marvel movie came out, there was like a backlash against Brie Larson because something about she wasn't smiling enough, and she just kind of shut down the haters.
Oh my god!
And I mean, to be fair, the first movie wasn't the best movie in the world, but it ended up grossing like $1 billion.
Over $1 billion, yeah.
I'm sure it's not because she didn't smile much.
Well, if you were on Twitter and if you have like any sort of straight, old school, certain kind of people, sort of comic book gatekeepers, so to speak, there was just a really strange backlash. I'm sure there's like YouTube breakdowns of that whole fucking... Anyway, I agree with you guys. It was a fun movie. It was really cute and delightful, I think is a good way of putting it. And lots of standout moments. And I think one of my favorite things is just the little opening credits. They have this sort of animated style that it looks like a kid drawing fan art in their notebook, because Iman, Kamala Khan's character, she's like a big fangirl. So it's like, she's almost like an avatar for you as a fan, because it's like if a fan became a superhero. So that in that sense, it's really cute. But there's a little moment where she's like drawing herself as a superhero over and over again. And she keeps erasing the hands, and she's like, God damn it, hands are so hard. And it's just like a cute little like 2-second moment that I was like, oh, this is such a cute, like little attention to detail and character development. So it's a cute film. It's got some of the pitfalls that a lot of Marvel movies have in terms of villain and whatnot, but I also think it avoids a lot of other pitfalls. And to Matt's point, really exciting post-credit scenes. The both of them got me pretty stoked.
But you guys would all recommend universally.
Oh my God.
I think so. I think so,
Absolutely.
especially if you're if you want something more fun and lighthearted and colorful and incredibly diverse cast and a lot of beautiful like female friendships on screen, which I really love seeing. It's at the core of it, there's like a theme of family and friendship, and I don't know, I like that kind of stuff.
Also, like found family, like they find each other in different ways. So beautiful. And also, listeners, I have the opportunity to see Shal and Matt smile while talking about this film. So, like, as they're discussing it, so that will give you an indication of the kind of experience you'll have with this film.
It raises your frequency. Absolutely.
I have not seen it yet. I'm sure I will. Andy likes superhero movies.
Yes.
Although I did watch a superhero movie this week.
What did
4
you see?
times.
What
4
what did you-
times.
What was it?
The Batman with Robert Pattinson.
Um,
If you guys are, I've talked to you before. You guys know that I put movies on before I go to bed. And I will say this is a great movie for that. I mean, it's raining constantly through the whole thing. The movie breathes a lot. Everybody's kind of talking in a whisper. Like, it's perfect. It's like ambient noise. I just put it on and I'm like, I'm out. I do enjoy the movie. It's a great movie,
but it's
but
also like some ambient noise too.
it's good if you're trying to get to bed. So recommend.
I think that's the most like unique review I've heard of a movie that was still positive somehow. It's like it was just really great ambient noise. And I slept so soundly during the film. 5 stars.
5 stars across the board. 5 Z's.
And I'm dead.
That's a special new segment we should have. What films provide the best ambient noise?
How many Z's?
Boy, they.
Okay, so today's film, we're going to be discussing the 2011 The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, directed by David Fincher. This is a gripping psychological thriller based on Stieg Larsson's novel. It intertwines the story of Mikael Blomkvist, a journalist, and Lisbeth Salander, a skilled hacker with a troubled past, as they investigate a 40-year-old missing person case in Sweden. As they delve into the Wagner family's dark history, they uncover shocking secrets and systemic corruption. The film explores themes of societal injustice, particularly against women, and the abuse of power, all set against the backdrop of suspense and mystery, and not to mention a very cold and blustery Sweden. So let's get into it. We're going to start with Act 1. We start by meeting Mikael Blomkvist, this journalist who's seen better days professionally. Then there's Lisbeth Salander. She's not your typical young woman or even hacker. Right from the start, we see her grappling with a troubled past and a challenging present, dealing with a difficult legal guardian situation. Then we meet Henrik Wagner, aka Captain Von Trapp, aka Christopher Plummer, a bigwig with a haunting family mystery. Lisbeth's journey in the first act is pivotal. It's more than just setting her up as a character. It's about laying the groundwork for her complicated yet intriguing persona. And the film doesn't just introduce us to the characters, it plunges us into their world full of secrets, personal demons, and a promise of deep, dark mysteries. So, that being said, what are your thoughts on how Mikael and Lisbeth introductions contrast with each other? How did this set up their dynamic for you?
Something I wanted to bring up is that Fincher, as a director, is very uncommon in his approach. Typically, a film functions within 3 acts, but this film functions in like a 5-act structure. Act 1 is exposition, Act 2, complication, Act 3, climax, Act 4, failing action, and then Act 5, catastrophe. He broke the structure that we know in terms of filmmaking. So even with the introduction of these characters, he's playing with us as a viewer. So we're seeing Mikael and we're seeing Lisbeth in very like separate situations. Typically we have one protagonist, but now we have 2, but they're like not connected yet. There's something interesting about like learning about them equally before they come together.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Matt, what about you? How did you feel when you were introduced to these characters?
I think, well, honestly, taking off of what Lars said, I think how long does it take for us to get for the 2 characters to meet each other? Do they meet each other like halfway through the movie?
Yeah, it's about an hour or so in.
It's later
they meet.
It's very interesting. And I see now that that's why we were spending so much time with Mikael. Am I saying that correctly? Mikael and Lisbeth. We're spending, I guess, a good amount of time in both of their worlds so they can be set up so that, when they finally meet, we have an appreciation for both of the characters. Obviously, I gravitated towards Lisbeth the most, I think, just because she is such a mystery. And I think she stays a mystery throughout the movie. We have an idea of certain things that may have happened to her, certain things that are implied, but we don't get like a full black and white, here's the story with her. But I kind of appreciate it because it allows the audience to kind of fill in the gap. Mikhail, I I don't know if I was as interested in what his journey was, but maybe that's because in some ways, in any other movie, he would be the typical go-to character. So I wasn't as focused on him because in some ways it kind of felt like I knew him a little bit, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
a appropriate thing to say, but I was more attracted to her story, and I appreciated her as a person that just gets it done. Obviously, doesn't follow the stereotypical female tropes. Yeah.
What about you, Mark? What did you think?
I kind of have a little bit of a reverse of Matt
Hmm.
because I met Mikhail
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, this poor SOB that, has his career, that he's doing the thing that he loves to do. And then, somebody comes along and it fucks it all up for him. And he ends up losing his job and reputation and just run out of town, essentially. And I really felt for him like early on in that. And I just was like, oh, this poor son of a bitch. And then I met Lisbeth and I was like, who is this bitch? Why am I supposed to care about her? Because she just seems so aggressive at the beginning, right? Why is she so aggressive? Why is she so mean and pissed off all the time at everybody? And she just seems
Mm-hmm.
so cold and distant
Mm-hmm.
and unfeeling. And just, I didn't have empathy for her at all at the beginning of the film. Now, at the beginning, this I'm just talking about at the beginning of the film, the introduction. Now, as it goes on and we start learning about her and understanding where she comes from and why she's behaving that way and what is done to her and all of these things, I'm like, oh my God, girl. She ends up turning into, in the course of the film, for me, turning into a superhero like character. And I'm rooting for her and I'm like, yeah, kick their ass. Ah. And like, she ends up being like my favorite character. But at the very start, it's the other way around, and it's Mikhail that I'm rooting for because I empathize with him more at the start of the film,
Hmm.
which is kind of what we're talking about in this first half.
Yeah, definitely. I would just add that I thought the contrast of the two characters was very interesting. So when they do finally meet, it is kind of like oil and water. But then you're sort of surprised at how ultimately they're mutual for respect for each other and understanding of each other's skills and strengths makes them sort of work really well together. And what we were mentioning before, it's really interesting how we don't meet the two protagonists till halfway through the film. Fincher takes his time setting up each character's journey thus far, what they're going through, what they're dealing with, the things they have to overcome. I will say my first impression of Lisbeth was not that of like, oh, why is this bitch so rude? It was really like, oh, this woman is damaged. There's a
Yeah.
reason why
Yeah.
she's like this.
There's like
Um,
something brewing, under the surface.
yeah, people don't just act that way out of selfish reasons 97% of the time. We don't choose to be pariahs. The world puts us there most of the time.
Yeah.
So I think from that perspective, she was very different to me. But even this piggybacking off that a little bit, we could dive just a little bit more into Lisbeth. Early on, we get a pretty raw glimpse into her world. How did that shape your view of her? Was there something about her experiences or attitude after them or throughout them that made her stand out for you in any way?
Well, I think there's something to be said about the fact her facade is not who she is. It's almost like putting on war paint and like,
Hmm.
with her tattoos, her piercing, like her blonde brows, her haircuts, it's to become like a warrior for the outside world because what she's facing is pretty serious. She has no autonomy. She has like nothing in her life that she can hold on to, but she keeps fighting. So I think that there's something about that I applaud. And it's kind of like what I do. Like, think about like if you have a breakup, like, I don't know about y'all, but for me, it's like cut your hair, get a tattoo, get a
Yeah.
piercing, and like change who you are.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt?
I mean, I'm going to piggyback off of what Laz just said because now that I'm thinking about it, there is a moment in regards to like the war paint and putting certain things on. Doesn't she get a tattoo over her bruise?
Yeah.
The tattoo artist is like,
Yeah.
this is going to hurt, and she's like,
Yep.
just go for it and do it. And so I think, to Laz's point, I think that's just another way of putting on a facade. I think in regards to her introduction and how I see her. Again, people aren't just mean just to be mean, and I think this is also testament to the performance of the actor as well. The way that she walks through life, it's just it's very matter of fact, I think, which also kind of informs the idea that this person has been damaged in some kind of way and does put on these layers. There's something in the performance that I said to myself at one point, she's not doing this to make someone angry. She's not doing this to be mean.
Mm-hmm.
This is just who she is. You know, it's very much when I was watching a performance, it was like someone had blinders on and they were like, I'm going to do this. I got to do that. I got to put this here. I'm walking into this room right now to get this cup of coffee. I don't have time to talk to you and say hi. I have to go and do this thing right here.
It's almost like dichotomy on dichotomy of like where like she's like playing casual and like strong, but like she has other layers that we'll see, and like it makes sense as the story progresses.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know, Mark, you touched on it a little bit earlier about your transition from like, I don't know about this woman, and then like finding out that she's awesome. Was there any specific moment that made that click for you?
What Matt was touching on with the tattoo, I think that was an important moment because I could see where she had these bruises that were outside of her control and had been inflicted on her by somebody else. And she was taking back control of her body and saying, no, if somebody's going to put a scar here, it's going to be me. I'm going to be the one that's going to do this. And, you know, maybe it'll be a reminder for the guy when he sees her, this is what I did to her. He'll have to see that every single time and maybe feel guilt. I don't know. But it was her reclaiming her body. I looked at it as that. And also, you know, she was getting victimized in the train station, trying to get robbed. And people, there was like bystanders just sort of filming the whole thing, like not helping at all. And she just kicked that mugger's ass and took off. And I was like, yeah, I was really happy to see that. And then the way that she ended up eventually turning the page with the victimizer, she didn't kill him. She could have killed him and disposed of the body, you know, or something. It would have been very easy for her to get away with it, I'm sure. And she had threatened to tattoo on his face, and she didn't do that either, which she could have done. But no, she was very, very smart about it. And I think that every way that she sort of got vengeance on him was very appropriate. Each time she like did something else to the guy, I was like, fuck yeah, get him, get him. I was really rooting for her. And so I thought that element was really cool. But I will say something about the movie that was disappointing for me is that I really thought this was going to be a sequel to Girl with a Pearl Earring. And this is not Girl with a Pearl Earring.
It's a sequel, but it takes place 500 years in the future.
Yeah. It's a dramatic reimagining. Yeah.
I would definitely say when I first saw the film, her taking vengeance on her victimizer was pretty exciting for me as a woman. I think I definitely am drawn to films where bitches take vengeance. But this is a theme that we see with her as a character throughout the movie, and that is to punish people who hurt women. And it's kind of touched on in the film, but just to give a little backstory of why she has a conservatorship, which I think makes it so relevant today between Britney Spears and Lindsay Lohan, and this notion of just not having autonomy over your life, over your money. Obviously, this is a very extreme or doubly extreme example of that, but highly relevant. But the reason why she's in a conservatorship is because when she was a little girl, she did light her father on fire, and he deserved it. That's all I'm going to say. If you want to know more, read the books or watch the Swedish movies where they go through all three of the books. But the point is, she's constantly punishing those or trying to find ways to punish those that she feels deserve punishment. And that is, from an ethical perspective, potentially a gray area. So I think it makes her a little bit of an anti-hero. But really, she's a hero.
I will piggyback on that and just say, The Swedish translation to this book was titled Men Who Hate Women.
It's a bit on the nose.
I mean, yeah, but wow.
The books are really good. I enjoyed them. I recommend reading them or listening to them on audio, but I will say they will make you want to drink all the coffee on earth and smoke cigarettes, even if you don't smoke, because these characters, that's all they fucking do. And I think if we were to do that in real life, we would die. And that's just my point there.
I'm currently eating a cigarette right now.
Yeah, it's just wild. It's funny how, I don't know if this is how Swedes are, but they love being caffeinated and cigaretted.
They sure do.
And they make really good fish.
Yes.
The little red
Little herrings.
Yeah.
Right? Is that what it's called?
I love me some Swedish fish. The best in
the Swedish fish.
Yeah. No, you put them in the freezer. Trust me. Next time you get Swedish fish, put them in the freezer.
God, but my teeth.
I prefer the Muppet variation. Urky burky durky durky.
Hey.
Flirties.
Why wasn't that guy in this film? That would have added some much needed levity.
I'm sure that he auditioned and the casting directors were like, there's just not a part for you in this one, maybe.
Yeah. It was tough for him.
I don't know. If you look really close, you'll see him in the background of the restaurant. Just, just zoom in.
Fergen.
So, moving on. So in Act 2, the plot thickens as Blomqvist and Salander pool their skills in journalism and hacking. They start to untangle the knotted history of the Wonger family. This part of the movie really ramps up the tension. They start unearthing some unsettling truths about Harriet's disappearance and stumble upon layers of corruption, misogyny, violence, and perhaps some serial murder deeply embedded in the family's past. The deeper they dig, the more complex and dangerous their investigation gets. So this act is also where we really see Lisbeth's resilience shine through despite her personal struggles. It's a whirlwind of suspense, revelations, and emotional intensity that sets the stage for a dramatic resolution. So, how did you feel about Lisbeth's evolution in this act?
I would say one thing that is clear about her evolution is working with Blomqvist. She lets him in. She's not someone who often lets someone in. Like, she respects him. She trusts him. She starts to take care of him. When the cat is found mutilated, she puts the cameras up, So I think in that sense, that's kind of a big deal for her because she really was very guarded and protected and didn't want to let anyone in, let alone a man.
It was interesting that he went to her knowing that she knew him inside and out. She had done all of the background and research to figure out who he was. And as he said, she knew him better than, his best friends did. So I thought that was a kind of a cool turn. And I liked how the characters were first introduced to each other. And he showed up with like cheeseburgers or something, or breakfast sandwiches first.
Yeah, bacon, egg, and cheese.
Yeah. I thought that introduction was done really well, and it was a great payoff for the build up the whole film. I will say though that I don't know if this is too early or not, but this whole first half of the movie into the middle part of the movie towards the end, I guess, most of the film, I was thinking that this girl with the dragon tattoo was going to be like the granddaughter of the girl they were looking for. And I was like, oh, she's still alive and this is her daughter and But and I guess I was kind of right, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, she had no relation to the missing girl. So I was a little surprised.
Yeah, I just taking off what Mark said, I thought the same thing. Like, I thought that's what we were going to be leading up to, and that obviously wasn't the case. In regards to their introduction to each other and her evolution, I think I appreciated that, she does let Mikhail, oh my God, I'm getting it wrong.
Mikhail Blomqvist.
Mikhail.
That's how I say it in the book.
Oh, Mickey.
I appreciate that she lets Mickey in, but I think what I also appreciate even more is that she kind of doesn't lose herself in all of it. In the, I guess the situationship that they kind of develop somewhat. If I say any more, I guess I'll end up jumping towards the end of the movie. But just to truncate this portion, I appreciated that she let him in and that she still takes care of herself at the same time, and she is not completely lost due to giving herself completely to someone, for lack of better words.
She remains true to herself, and she's very aware of her self and where she is, like her boundaries versus somebody else. She's not seduced. She's not easily seduced by anything.
Oh no,
let alone
not.
Daniel Craig. She's just like, you kind of cute. Oh, take off your shirt.
I think there's something to be said as well. Like she knows so much about this guy. She like has done her research. So like her letting him in is because I think they have like a mutual bond, even though they're so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think because he never put the moves on her and he never showed 1 ounce of like looking at her in any kind of way with desire.
Yeah.
I think that maybe was probably really attractive to her.
Yeah.
And it's part of that like war paint aspect where like she wants to look almost like unattractive to like keep that barrier. So it's, again, this film has a lot to dig into.
Yeah. And also just one last little tidbit, taking off of her doing all of her research of Mickey. I think that she doesn't do anything that will completely leave her helpless. She knows what she's doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I genuinely appreciate that.
So the Vanger family's history is pretty dark. Did you expect it to turn into a whodunit serial killer film? How do you think the film handled the unfolding of these disturbing elements?
I felt like Shal did during Birth. I say that because the movie started and I was like, oh, this is going to be like a detective whodunit serial killer kind of movie right at the beginning. And then I kind of like, I don't know, I felt like I knew at the beginning that the woman was going to be alive. Like I just knew the person they were looking for was going to end up being alive. There'd be some twist. And the girl ended up being, I was kind of leaning towards too. Not to say that the movie wasn't very layered and nuanced and interesting anyway, but I don't know. I had my Sherlock Holmes hat on today, and I just kind of thought at the beginning it was going to go where it ended up going. And I was very proud of myself, and I definitely thought about Shal the entire time. I was like, oh yeah, because she called it at Birth, and I feel like I'm in the same spot. Like I kind of get it. And I don't even watch CSI, but I pat myself in the back. Anyway, that's all.
What about you, Matt?
So this is the portion that I had trouble with because I think for me, I was trying to keep track of everyone's history and all of the family members and all of the history, and I was trying to find a through line. And I guess it wasn't really explained until the very end in regards to the many different women that were abused and killed. But I was trying so hard to keep up with everyone's history in the family, so it was a little confusing. I do think that it was brought in well at the end. The relevance of it all was brought in well at the end. I did feel at the very beginning, once we got to Christopher Plummer's character, I was like, okay, we're on this detective ride. I had a little bit of a moment where I thought, oh well, this is Daniel Craig's acting reel for Knives Out. Like, that's immediately where my mind. Huh?
I kind of love that.
Yeah, like that's immediately where my mind went. I'm like, okay, so this is like pre-detective before Knives Out. Like this is his prequel story. But yeah, that's pretty much all that I can say. It was a little confusing to keep up with the different elements of the different people in the family line.
I could totally understand that. I think the first time I watched it, I also had a similar, like, who are all these people that they keep talking about? But I think what surprised me when I first watched it is that I totally forgot about Harriet at some point, that's who they were looking for, because now they were uncovering like all these women that have been murdered since the 40s. And, I love being some like serial killer, like let's trace the profile and figure out why they're killing the people they're killing, and how it tied back to these anti-Semitic things and hatred against women and all that good stuff, all that fun lighthearted stuff that I did expect that. I think the first time I saw it, and I think when I rewatched it, it all is like, oh, now I get how all these things come together. Harriet was being abused by her father and then her brother, and I swear to God, I think the first time I got so distracted by that whole serial killer arc, and then finally having to confront, which we talk about in the next act, Skarsgård's character, Martin, and that already distracted me from everything else. I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck just happened? So yeah, I definitely didn't expect that turn so dramatically. I think the first time I saw it.
Skarsgård's always the bad guy though, except for what was that one he did, that show, the Star Wars show? What was it?
Wait, was he the bad guy in that?
No, he was the good guy.
He was in Andor.
He was in Andor. He was the good guy.
Yeah, he was the one.
And I was like, oh, he's good here. But in everything else, he's been.
Well, he's good in the Marvel universe.
Oh, he is. Well, but he does have a moment where he gets brainwashed and he's bad.
That's true. Loki does.
But I do like him. I like him a lot.
He's great.
He's fun to watch. I like him more than his son.
He was also in. I think we were talking about it last time. The Nymphomaniac. He was in that as well.
Oh,
these Skarsgårds are in everything, aren't they? They just keep popping up. They're like. But
I saw him in this, and I was like, "Oh, he's going to be the bad guy, isn't he?"
Yeah.
Because I saw him in the movie, and I was like, "Oh yeah, he's bad."
Being the horror guy, I will say, support Bill Skarsgård, who played Pennywise in It.
There's a fourth one.
Alexander.
There's so many.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, if I were to... Sorry, Laz, were you about to say something?
Go ahead.
He's a sex kitten, though. That's Skarsgård.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like, if I had seen him outside of the Pennywise makeup before I saw that version of It, I just don't know if I would have been scared anymore.
Is it bad? I'd probably still fuck him in the Pennywise makeup.
Nope, not at all. Me too.
Okay. Oof.
Yeah, but I think there's four of them. There's Eric Alexander Stefan, the guy who's married to Maggie Gyllenhaal, and this guy Bill. They're like the Swedish Baldwins.
Oh my God. If we titled the episodes specific things, Swedish Baldwins would be a great title for the episode.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk a little bit about Fincher. So he likes to play with pacing and building suspense in different ways. And all his movies do this in a very different way. How effective was this technique in this particular film? And were there any moments or sort of sequences that stood out in regards to sort of Fincher's style and pacing and building suspense?
Oh, I text you, Shal. I was like, oh, this film breathes so many deep breaths.
Definitely.
Yeah, I was way into that. I liked the pacing and the building up of the momentum and stuff. And it kind of reminded me a little bit of people are going to lose their minds when I say this, because I'm like, what is he talking about? But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino, because it's another movie that is long as hell. And it's a slow burn till you get to the end. The thing is what Fincher got right and Tarantino got wrong is Tarantino just blew his load in the last 20 minutes of the film, and that was what you got.
Yeah.
But Fincher was he just kept going. It's like the last, Director Kake. Yeah, right.
Director
the last
Kake.
Hour, we at least, we had 2 hours where it was nice and slow or whatever, or almost 2 hours. And then the back half of the film was just go, go, go. I definitely liked it better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I liked the movie, but they did it better here. The pacing, I think the pacing was much better here on this one.
Yeah. What do you think, Matt?
The thing that stood out to me the most, especially in the beginning, was the dialogue and how sharp it was. And I'm sure that's also due to editing as well, where I think the breaths come in because they're earned.
Yeah.
I mean, they say that, in theater as well. You got to earn those pauses, get through the dialogue. I mean, obviously, make sure that the important information is delivered in the dialogue. But if you're going to have a pause, you got to earn that pause. And I think that's what this movie does, because there's a lot of cuts to different scenes. And even in the dialogue, the cuts are fast. So, I mean, the actors aren't necessarily talking on top of each other, but every piece of dialogue comes in right afterwards. So the pauses and those breaths are earned. I felt like there was a little bit of a lull that could have also been, again, because I'm trying to tie together all the pieces of the family history. Once we get to that ending, you're on a ride. You're literally on a ride. And I was doing that thing where, like, they say this, but Black people, like, they talk back to the movie. And I was talking back to the movie for like the last 30 minutes.
What were you saying, though?
I mean, okay, so like, you have the moment where we go to, I'm just going to say evil Skarsgård, where we go to his house and Mickey is hung up in the basement and Lisbeth comes in to save the day. Evil Skarsgård runs up the stairs. Mickey's like, hey, Lisbeth, he's got a gun. And so she's running up to, wait, did she grab the gun on the way up?
Yeah.
So she grabs the handgun, but I'm thinking, wait a minute. And I'm yelling, no, honey, he's got a shotgun. He's got a rifle in the house. This man hunts. You don't know what you're doing. You have to look out. I was talking back to the movie.
So you were saying this like out loud.
Yes, I was.
I love it.
We need to have a watch party one of these days, guys.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
I definitely want to talk a little bit more about that scene, but really quick, Laz, I know you were mentioning Fincher before. In regards to pacing, what were your impressions?
I kind of like a full circle kind of moment. And I was talking about like how Fincher broke the model, from 3-act to 5-act. This is a literal quote from David Fincher. He says, there was really no way to take what Larson had written and get it into 3 acts. And so we sort of had to make our peace with the idea of a 5-act structure. And I think that like they achieved that, and it was an experiment. And I can always applaud any director that steps outside the box, whether it's successful or not. But I think with this one, you feel it. There might be lulls, there might be like quiet moments, there might be breaths, but like for a director to do something different, chef's kiss.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love it when someone tries something different, especially in Hollywood where everything sometimes you feel or sometimes you're pushed to make it formulaic. I appreciate any piece of art in film that tries to break the mold.
I will say, I could be not 100% accurate with this little tiny bit of trivia, but I'm only going to bring it up because it's so relevant to what Laz just said, and also relevant to our last episode, Dune. When he made this film, there was the presumption that if it does well, we're going to make the other 2 books.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that buildup, a lot of the first 2 acts where things are kind of quiet and there's a lot of silent storytelling and investigation and character building and all that stuff, maybe would have paid off a little bit better for audiences if he was able to continue her story and have those sort of things pay off. But
100. This movie should have been 2 films.
Yeah, this movie should have been 2 films, and the other 2 films, the other 2 books. I haven't seen the Swedish movies, so I'm not a Girl with the Dragon Tattoo expert, unfortunately. But I did read the first 3 books twice, and she's just a fascinating character, and she has an excellent journey and payoff. And I do wish that we got to see more of that portrayed with Fincher and this cast.
So, is your dragon tattoo on your neck? Is that just like a rub-on?
No, it's on my ass.
Oh.
It's where the most real estate is.
That's so weird. I have it on my ass too.
Yeah. Well, what they say about Cubans.
Oh, Laz, yours is more detailed.
Yeah, it's like so crazy.
Love it.
I got it when I was like 9.
Laz was a hardcore 9-year-old. I saw it. I saw him get it.
Oh, this is the truth, and I believe that.
These are true stories. All right. So let's jump into Act 3 and our terrifying climax. So ultimately, the truth about Harriet's disappearance is finally unearthed, which we touched on a little bit, that she was kind of always alive since the beginning, revealing a labyrinth of shocking family secrets and deep-seated corruption, talking back to, oh gosh, one of our brothers is a serial killer. And in one of the film's most gripping moments, Martin Wagner, who at this point is confronting Mikhail and kind of bringing everything that's happened up until this point is coming to a head right in this scene. And following this confrontation, we see the investigation's consequences unfold, particularly for the Wagner family, Blomqvist's career. And then the film shifts its focus a bit back to Lisbeth, highlighting her personal growth and ongoing challenges. Her resilience and complexity shine through, leaving a lasting impression as the story wraps up. Okay, so I know, Matt, you touched on it a little bit before, but I want to hear everybody else's reaction to that scene with Martin Wagner and Blomqvist. It's pretty intense. How are you feeling during that showdown, and did it catch you off guard in any way? Mark.
So Daniel Craig, we've actually seen a similar scenario with one of the Bond films where he was all tied up, and it was like this dominatrix kind of thing with one of the Bond villains that was a dude, and it was you're on the island, and it was what's his name? Oh, Javier Bardem. He had him on the island. He was strapped to the chair.
Oh,
and he was all like, what makes you think I haven't been touched by a man or something? They had that sort of moment. So this was like that, but without a safe word.
Right.
So, no, it's true, because when you're watching it in a Bond film, you're like, oh, he's going to get away. He's going to be fine. It's a Bond film, whatever. But Girl with the Dragon Tattoo took it next level. They also covered his mouth with like the plastic and stuff.
Yeah.
Which some people like to wear rubber suits. I'm not into that crowd. But if it's your kink, I'm not here to kink shame.
We're not here to kink shame.
Yeah, he put that thing on, and I thought he was gone. I thought he was dead. And when Rooney Mara showed up, and she saved the day, I was like, oh, there she is. Okay, great. But I actually wasn't expecting her to make it on time. I thought he was going to die. I thought they were going to kill Mikey. So I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah. What do you think, Laz? What was your reaction when you first saw that scene?
I'm a very big, like true crime aficionado. So I love this kind of stuff, like those reveals where it's like, oh shit, like this is what it was all along. I think in this film, it was justified how they did it. Like, it wasn't my favorite, but I think Fincher pulled it off really nicely. Having Lisbeth come in to that scenario was what really elevated the stance, the circumstance and the stakes.
Yeah.
Didn't Evil Skarsgård start playing Inya? Was that Inya that I was
Yes.
I loved that.
Sail away, sail away, sail
I mean, there were
away.
Like American Psycho when they put on the 80s music.
Yeah, Huey Lewis in the News.
Yeah.
Do you know Huey Lewis in the News? You got to snap and point to say that.
But also Enya's kind of evil.
Is she?
Yeah, like for a horror fan, she's evil. Jeez Louise.
Oh my Lord.
I had flashbacks to is it Reservoir Dogs, where we got the music playing while man's getting lit on fire, or the gasoline is being poured on him.
Oh my God.
That is such a good comparison.
So I had flashbacks of that, and then didn't Evil Skarsgård mention something about masturbating during people getting tortured, or was that Mickey? Someone mentioned something about that, or did I just make that up?
I think I could tell you right now what he says, because I literally just finished rewatching this right before this. Yeah. It's a very interesting moment, and I want to talk about, after having watched it a few times and digest it and really diving into the scene, what affected me, because I have the same reaction as you guys had for the first time. But having rewatched it, I think what makes this scene so fascinating is this moment where you get to see the killer kind of pause and just sort of casually, calmly, soberly talk through his reasons of why he does what he does and how he likes to do it. And he says, this is my favorite part, when I'm just sitting here having a drink and we both know that one of us is going to die. That makes me hard. That's more or less what he says.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's and if you are a student of true crime and the serial killer genre, for lack of a better term, it's really all about motive. It always is. Why are people doing what they do? And he just kind of lays it out for you. And I find that really fascinating. And I think it makes Lisbeth's entering the scene so satisfying when she's like, hey, and then just whacks him across the face with that golf club. Even the sound makes you want to cheer. I think another little favorite moment of mine is when she saves Mikhail. She kind of takes the plastic off his face and she goes, "May I kill him?" He nods yes, and then she goes off
Oh,
to
that was
chase
cool.
him. Yeah, I think that's such a great, like, she's asking permission because again, she wants to punish these people who hurt these men who hurt women. Like, that is her mission statement. If she had a brand and a business card, it'd be Lisbeth Salander. I'm gonna kill you.
Follow my Instagram, follow my Twitter.
Yes, exactly.
I'm on Threads
Subscribe
now.
and like for more. Ring the bell. But I also kind of appreciate that she ultimately doesn't directly kill him. She sort of runs him off the road, and he ultimately kind of kills himself.
Yeah.
Legally speaking, like, there's no proof of what she did as far as we know.
That's something about Lisbeth that is really unique. Like, she's smart enough to be able to like pull off like some of these actions without consequence. Like, she knows how to do it the right way, even if it, is accidental.
Well, she's very smart. Like, outside of the fact that, she's a hacker and she's able to figure all this shit out, she actually has a photographic memory.
Yeah.
And she she's a little bit of a genius level person. They don't really fully go into it in the movie. They give you little clues.
Yeah, they give you that quick nod when Daniel Craig shows her some information on the laptop, and so he's like, "Don't you want a notepad or anything?" She's like, "No, I got it."
She's like, "I got it." Yeah, she just remembers everything. So she is a little bit of a superhero in a lot of ways. Now, jumping to the next question, I know we kind of talked about this, but if anybody didn't get a chance to answer, in regards to the revelation about Harriet, that she was alive all along under a different identity, in London, not wanting to be bothered. How did you guys feel to that revelation? Were you blindsided? I know, Mark, you figured it out in the beginning, and I don't blame you. I definitely got that vibe too, I think. But I still got so distracted by everything else, I totally forgot about Harriet. So what did you guys think? Matt, Laz?
I got distracted by everything else too that I forgot.
Like, oh shit, there's a Harriet? Who's this bitch?
Oh, Lord.
I knew that there was going to be a twist. I didn't think that it was going to be that twist, and I did not think that we were going to be following her. I thought it was just going to be some twist with Lisbeth's character. So all I could think about was the years of abuse, and then having to go through that abuse again after having what you would think would be a sort of moment of triumph after her killing her father. I guess it also made me think that, sometimes trauma is sometimes the healing is not permanent. Things come back to reopen the wound.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of that, at that point, I was so invested, I think, in Mikhail and Lisbeth that like the solution wasn't the most important part of the story. I felt like the resolution that I was looking for was with those characters. So it's almost like their powers combined, like Captain Planet. They found a way to have their, unique abilities to solve something, but that true crime, detective stuff was just a facilitator for them to connect.
Yeah. So, what a fun discussion. I'd love to hear a little bit about rewrites. Are there any aspects of the film that if you were sitting in the director's chair, you'd be like, let's change that? Starting with you, Mark, what do you think?
What comes to mind when thinking about this film is the pacing. And I liked the pacing and I appreciate the pacing. And I love how it builds to that beautiful resolution at the end. But then I think we were good, but the movie kept going. And I'm like, really? So I don't think we needed that extra 30 minutes to wrap up the C plot or something, or whatever was happening with Mikey at the beginning. I don't know. I just, at that point, I no longer cared, so I just feel like the main plot was uncovering, the girl and finding out what happened to her and uncovering that whole mystery. And the guy gets his job back. Great. Okay, cool. But I think we were good there. The fact that I kept going, I was like, okay, the movie doesn't need to be this long. So I started caring less after the main conclusion concluded. So that would be my rewrite.
What about you, Matt?
I think for me, because I was trying to understand the justification for it, and I think we get some glimpses of Lisbeth's character with it happening, but I wasn't sure if it was necessary. I guess the sexual relationship that Mickey and Lisbeth have. I mean, in some ways, again, Mickey doesn't really make any moves on her. She's the one that's making the move. She's the one that's taking the power, and that kind of gives us more information about this character. But I guess I was trying to figure out where it was going to go. It kind of gets followed through with towards the end, but I guess there wasn't enough of an emotional depth between the two of them in a certain way that I don't know if the payoff really paid off. I just don't understand why they needed to keep having sex. Initially, I thought it was just going to be like a bit and a running joke or some kind of running gag. I'm like, okay, so maybe this is just some humor that's being added in or part of the odd dynamic between these two characters, but it just didn't fully manifest itself in a justification of why it needed to be there for me.
That's fair. What about you, Les? What would be your rewrite?
This might be the first time that I don't have a rewrite, because I think this is like an experiment with film. I think that he was trying to do something different outside the box. Even understanding that time, like 4 months later, we got the Avengers. So that time was very different for film. And I think what he did and what he tried was unique. He broke structures. He broke, the mold. And I can appreciate that from an artistic standpoint. So I would say, no notes on that one. I think let it be as an art form.
Yeah, those are all great points. I think one thing that Matt said in regards to their sexual relationship, I think two things I would sort of speak to. One of them is that relationship. In the book and even in the movie to a certain extent, she has a very clear understanding of the kind of guy Mikhail is. He's a loyal guy. He's a smart guy. He's a respectful man. He's not a misogynist in any way. And I think she falls for that a little bit. And I think she forgets kind of who he is, that he is in this relationship with this other woman. He has been for years. I mean, it's a little bit of a throwaway detail, but basically his editor-in-chief, played by Robin Wright, she's married, but she's basically kind of in a semi-open relationship where her husband doesn't mind if she's having sex with Daniel Craig because they've just have this relationship for such a long time. Yeah. And Lisbeth knew that when she did the background check. So I think when she sees them together and gets kind of jealous, it feels a little out of character for me, but at the same time, I could empathize with the notion of a woman who doesn't let people in. She lets somebody in, and then reality just kind of reminded her of the situation.
Yeah.
And then also in regards to sort of how the movie sort of keeps going, I think when I first saw the film, I felt the same way. I'm like, what the fuck's going on? Why is it still going? But when I read the books, I understood. It is to sort of show where Lisbeth is heading next. She basically steals billions of dollars from this Wennerstrom guy. She distributes it however she feels is appropriate. And then she starts living her life. She starts evolving. She stops hiding behind her armor. And in the next book, I think some of my favorite chapters of any book ever, she's on some like island in the Caribbean, just living her best life, reading a book about the three-body problem and physics and just teaching herself stuff because she's so fucking smart and still saving women from abusive men somehow, but in a much better place emotionally. And I think we never got that payoff. So I wonder if maybe that should have been edited out or cut down a little bit. But at the same time, having read the books, I appreciate it. So it is kind of like a
or even like reshot.
Yeah.
You get some sort of pseudo resolution with like hope.
Yeah. It's almost like they tried to do a double ending, but the second ending didn't end. It's kind of so as a standalone film, I think that does hurt it a little bit. So wrapping things up, let's end on a high note. What stuck with you the most after the film? Were there any moments or themes or things that just kind of left you with a thought aftertaste?
I was really impressed by the complexity of the story that they wove. I haven't read the books, but I imagine they stayed pretty close to that. I was impressed by the acting in this film. I was impressed by the pacing. There was a lot going for this film that was positive as far as being an art form and being presented with this story. And so yeah, I think it was very well executed. Again, I felt like the ending was a little bit run-on sentency, but aside from that, I thought it was a great story, and I was kicking myself for not seeing it in the theater because I felt like this would have been a great theater film.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
I will say, because I'm always that person that wants to know what happens to the characters after the credits roll. I always want to know what's next, what happened then, what happened then. And I definitely wanted to know what happened after she rides off in her motorcycle. I was like, where's she going? What's going to happen now?
You should listen to the books. I don't know if you're an audiobook guy, but they're fun to listen to. And if you like bad bitch power,
I do.
I recommend it. They're fun. If you like investigations, if you like adventures, if you like getting inside the mind of people, I recommend it for any of our listeners who haven't already, who like the movie and haven't read the books. I think it's a perfect like complement to it.
I was going to give a little shout out to Rooney Mara as well. The transformation. I mean, I saw her in The Network, right? She was in The Network.
Yeah, the Social Network.
Social Network, yeah.
Yeah.
To see because those came out more or less like within the same time frame, maybe 2 years apart.
Yep.
And to see that character and to see this character, she's got some range, and that was just a delight and a treat to see. And I loved seeing her transformation and to see her really do something different in this movie. So kudos to her, really.
Awesome.
I want to call out like two different things. Number one, the music composition. Trent Reznor, I love him, Nine Inch Nails, and Atticus Ross. They've done many very, different compositions for films. They are so amazing, and I love that for them. And then in addition, the cinematographer, Jeff Cronenweth.
That's how he says his name at the bank. Hi, I'm Jeff Cronin. I'd like to make a withdrawal.
But like the cinematography is gorgeous. I think those two things should be highlighted in addition to, I think, what you said, Matt.
Awesome. I love this movie. I love everything about it. A great translation of the book, so I'm not going to go on too far. But I do want to say, I wanted to ask you guys, what did you think of the opening credits? They're like some of my favorite opening credits of all time.
Oh my God.
The sort of black oily people, and then the Karen O cover of Immigrant Song. Like, it just gets me hyped.
Trent Reznor, by the way.
Yeah.
It was like a Nine Inch Nails music video, let's face it.
It was cool, though.
I was thinking of a
so
Bond movie.
awesome.
Yeah,
I thought
it was
of a Bond movie right away with like, there's like a very interesting, I can't remember it now. It's like a woman and she's like covered in like black. I'm thinking covered in black oil, but that's because I'm thinking of one of the Bond movies, but that's the only way that I can think to describe it. And then there's like some oil coming out of her mouth, and it was cool. That was a very
so bad though. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah.
The
I mean, I'm such a
Cranberries have a
huge
video like that too, don't they? The lead singer of the Cranberries. Yeah, she's
Dolores.
Yeah, she's dripping with like gold paint.
Yeah, that's the zombie video.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I just love, I'm a huge Yes fan, so just hearing Karen O's voice screeching the song, it gets me so hyped. Cool. All right, so let's jump to director's cut.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
So I picked the scene where Blomkvist and Lisbeth meet for the first time, because I think it's just a fun little introduction. It was a fun little scene. Do we know who wants to play Whomst? I could be Blomkvist.
Oh, I'll be Salander.
All right, Laz, do you want to read the little host bit?
Sure.
Action.
Blomkvist, plunging a French press, watches as her girlfriend lets herself out. In the bedroom, Salander finishes getting dressed, sticks her taser in the back pocket of her jeans, and comes out to find a table setting that's more formal than she is used to.
You're awake. Good. Breakfast is ready. I guess I alarmed you, showing up like this.
If you touch me, I'll more than alarm you.
That won't be necessary. Your report on me was quite detailed, but for me not very entertaining.
It wasn't meant to be.
When I write about people, I try to entertain the reader.
Venestrom wasn't entertained.
Your boss, Armansky, tells me you only work on things that interest you. I guess I should be flattered. He also says you're the one he goes to for when jobs that are sensitive is the word he used. I'll use illegal, since that is what happened when you hacked into my computer. I'm not going to do anything about that, but I could, but I won't. What I'm going to do is tell you a story. If it entertains you, maybe you'll decide to help me research it further. If it doesn't, I'll wash the dishes and leave. Are you even going to touch your food?
What kind of research?
Lisbeth. May I call you Lisbeth? I want you to help me catch a killer of women.
Cut.
That was a good scene. It was wholesome. That was a wholesome nugget in that movie.
It was wholesome. It was cute. I like how he gets like a regular sandwich or a meat sandwich and a vegetarian sandwich because he's not sure. He's like, which one do you want?
Yeah.
But she doesn't care. She goes to McDonald's and that's where she gets most of her meals. Like she's very low maintenance woman.
It's very much like a Nick Fury asking her to, join the Avengers Initiative.
Yeah.
But with like sex.
Right. Yes.
Cool. So trivia?
Trivia. Last sing. Can you sing it?
Trivia.
There we go. He does it the best. All right. Well, the piercings, including multiple ear, eyebrow, and nipple piercings that Rooney Mara sports as Lisbeth Salander are real, not cosmetic simulations. Mara got the piercings, including her nipple piercing, and she said it was actually not that painful. She told Allure magazine, I thought she has it in the book, and she should have it in the movie. That's really cool. Meta, that's awesome. But she didn't get a dragon tattoo on her neck. That's not real.
Or her
Just
ass.
For clarity.
Or her ass.
Shalimar got that.
I got some tea to spill.
Tea.
Yeah. So when casting started, the role of Lisbeth Salander was originally offered to Natalie Portman, but she declined due to exhaustion. She was busy at the time, folks. Scarlett Johansson was also considered, but David Fincher considered her too sexy. Jennifer Lawrence was considered too, but she was rejected because she was too tall. Finally, Rooney Mara was cast. So with Rooney Mara, not a lot of people know this, she was in the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, playing my favorite personal character, Nancy, the most iconic final girl ever. And she has been reported on, she was like, I don't care about this part. I didn't want to be in that movie. I didn't care. I didn't want to do anything. And it was
What film?
Gasp.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake.
Oh, weird.
So do you hate her?
Yes, for that. She ruined my childhood.
Oh no. Girls gotta get paid.
Oh, but at least if you're on set as a starring role, do your job, girl.
Yeah. Well, isn't she married now to Joaquin Phoenix, which I feel like would have the same attitude.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah, random,
That's an interesting couple.
right?
More trivia.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of wish I always roll my eyes a little bit when an actor is too tall or has the wrong hair color. To me, that stuff is so trivial that at the end of the day, we're all artists, we're all actors. And unless it's like a very important piece for the whole piece, I'm like, please let it go and let people use their imaginations.
I would say, though, that I think Lisbeth, whoever played her, needed to feel vulnerable and delicate and sort of frail. So you would be ultimately surprised when you realize she will bash your face in with a golf club.
Yeah.
Okay. Matt, what do you think? What's your trivia beat today?
Numi Rapist. performance as Lisbeth Salander in the Swedish adaptation of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo in 2009 was so well received. A campaign to have her reprise the role in the English language version gained wide attention in the media, championed by film critic Roger Ebert, among others. Ultimately, Rapace declined to reprise the role, saying that after playing the character for 3 years during the filming of the original trilogy, she couldn't play the role again in the same stories.
Makes sense. I kind of want to see the Swedish ones. My mother loves the Swedish ones, and she says, you should see those. She didn't like Fincher's adaptation.
Well,
I'd be curious to see her.
Prometheus.
Yeah, I am angry with her because of Prometheus, but she didn't write it. It's not her fault. We know who to blame for that.
Yeah.
Ridley Scott. Okay, so Tim Miller designed the opening titles and was asked to come up with some thoughts on what Lisbeth's nightmares would consist of. He came up with about 50 ideas, which were whittled down to 25, and he was only given 8 weeks to realize them. So ultimately, the opening credits are meant to be, I guess, abstractions of Lisbeth's nightmares.
I love that.
So interesting and so clever. Also, 8 weeks to create that. That's God.
pretty lean.
Kudos to our visual effects artists. We appreciate you because sometimes, man,
It also still like holds up.
it does. It looks amazing.
Fincher's opening credits are always some like crazy graphic telling of what's going on. Another great example is like Fight Club's opening graphics sort of take you through all kinds of, it's also very early 2000s, I think, late 90s, his sort of aesthetic.
I like the opening for House of Cards.
Yes, he did House of Cards.
So although David Fincher had not requested it, Rooney Mara decided to lose a substantial amount of weight in order to give her character a bony appearance. She got so used to dieting during the shoot that Fincher had to encourage her to eat during a dinner.
But she did look like a computer hacker, so it paid off.
She did.
She didn't have the 2-liter bottle next to her of Mountain Dew,
No,
but aside
Or
from
a
that,
monster.
it was implied. They don't have Mountain Dew in Sweden, probably. They probably have something else.
Like Florgy Borgies.
You know, it's fun.
That's the
I haven't
brand.
been to Europe too many times, but one thing that stands out if you ever go to a convenience store is that they don't have many options for
No.
things. It's like, okay, we have one soda and one tea. Have fun. Goodbye.
in Sweden you get the Schmorgenfergen, and that is
Exactly.
it. And diet Schmorgenfergen.
I hope we're not
Mark, you got it
offending any
wrong.
of our
It's Morgan Morgan.
Swedish.
know.
Oh,
We're gonna
okay.
get in so much trouble.
We've been
I know.
canceled in Sweden.
I know.
One of the rough things about listening to the book is they talk a lot about all the streets, and in these sort of Nordic countries, street is like Straten or like Govanzastort. So it's like, what fucking street are you on? It's like Skabrudenstraten or Flabitenduten. I'm sorry, I'm going to hell. But it's just hard to keep track. And when I went to Amsterdam, I had a similar issue, like because the word street is attached to the street name. It's like one long word.
Yeah.
It's just really
The signs in
hard.
Amsterdam are so
Yeah.
long.
It's really hard to like make a memory impression of the name of the street because it's all just like one long Stratenbotten.
And then try to say that while you're high in Amsterdam. I mean, Andy and I gave up.
I was
We
about to say,
totally gave up. Didn't
this
even.
is from personal experience.
Oh yeah.
Don't
Oh,
try
yeah.
to get a taxi and
tricky.
be like, I need to go to Street.
Fortunately, it's easy to get around because it's such a small city. But if you're trying to look up street names, you better take pictures of those
Everybody-
motherfuckers because
Everybody bikes.
everybody bikes. You're more likely to get hit by a bike than by a car.
Mm-hmm.
These are facts. They don't give a shit. They will run you over if you're in their lane. And I think one thing I saw that blew my mind was a woman with her 2 kids and like a full shopping, like grocery shop on 2 fucking wheels. I was like, damn,
Oh my God.
it's impressive.
A lot of the houses in Amsterdam are built like the second floor. They don't have stairs. They're built with ladders.
Oh my God.
A lot of the older homes in Amsterdam have ladders to the second floor instead of stairs.
Oh
Anyway.
no.
I love Amsterdam, by the way.
Me too.
Great place. Definitely go visit if you haven't.
but don't try to climb the ladder when you're high. Just stay downstairs.
No, or fall in the canals. They will make fun of you and probably leave you there.
Oh, I have more trivia.
One more.
So I realized this while I was watching. I was like, I know that woman that plays Cecilia. So it's Geraldine James. She plays Cecilia. And I'd seen her before. So I was like, where did I see her? And I looked it up. And she plays Mayor Jans in Silo on Apple TV Plus. Also with Rebecca Ferguson, who is Lady Jessica in Dune. So full circle. Last week's and this week's. It's all kind of connected.
Dun, dun, dun.
6 degrees of Lady Jessica.
And some random but necessary Star Trek trivia. Christopher Plummer, who played General Chang
Oh, that's right.
in Star Trek: The Undiscovered Country.
What's that
is
quote
also-
with the dogs of war? Was it? Come on.
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
That was really good.
It was so good.
All right, guys. Final thoughts. 1 to 5 dragon tattoos. Starting with you, Mark.
Okay. I find life in general is really heavy. So I don't watch a lot of heavy movies. I got to preface it with that. It was a beautiful, heavy movie. I've already stated, beautifully shot, beautifully acted. The script was great, but it is a heavy film. So I don't know how often I would go back to it. So for that reason, it gets stinged, but only a little. So I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 dragon tattoos, just for rewatchability for me, because it's kind of a downer. But I did enjoy the film, and it is beautiful.
What about you, Matt?
I'm also going to give it a 3.5. And that's not because I thought that anything out of the film was bad. I just need to rewatch it to fully appreciate everything. If that makes any sense.
That's fair. Laz?
I'll give it a 4 out of 5. You know, there's thought put into this film. There's thought to the material. It's hard to adapt anything from written text. So, like, the effort was really lovely and the casting was great. I think what they achieved was excellent. So, 4 out of 5.
Excellent. I also fall under that 4 out of 5 dragon tattoos. There's definitely certain things that I feel like you can zone out a little bit, might be a little dry. And I think for those reasons, I don't give it a full 5, but I definitely give it 4 for tackling a difficult topic, violence against women, but doing it in a way that you feel sort of a little satisfied at the end. The vengeance comes through. I think even though it is dark subject matter, the hero kind of is the hero we needed, not the hero we knew we expected. Maybe we thought it would have been Mikhail, I think. And it's really awesome to know that it was Lisbeth.
Not the hero we needed, but the hero we deserve.
Exactly. There you go.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev, a Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark. And Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
So, Matt, with Laz and Shal busy with work next week, what will you and I be discussing?
Next week, you and I will be discussing Scrooge is a 1951 British Christmas fantasy drama film and an adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, written in 1843. It stars Alastair Sim as Ebenezer Scrooge and was produced and directed by Brian Desmond Hurst. This one's got a very special place for me because this is probably the one that I have seen the most because it was my mom's favorite. So I saw it at a very young age and I've watched it pretty much every year since because it was my mother's favorite version of Christmas Carol.
Okay, listeners. So if you guys remember when we had Hello, My Name is Doris, I said that I had a Doris. Well, my Doris loves this version of the film, and she happens to say that it's the best one. So, easing into the holiday season, we're going to watch a couple of holiday-themed films. So I thought this is a great one to start with. And Shal and Laz, you guys are going to miss it, but we will also miss you guys next week.
Yeah.
And looking forward to your return. So, Laz.
Mark, we're going to get in so much trouble.
I'm sorry, Mark. Did you mean, so Laz, where can people find you when you're not blank? Yes.
Do you understand Swedish? I didn't realize you spoke
apparently do.
Swedish.
I watched a lot of Muppets growing up. Like Muppets Take Manhattan is one of my favorite films. No joke.
Oh, God.
So where can you find me? You can find me on Instagram, Twitter. I'm not going to call it X. You can find me on pretty much every social platform at Laz Marquez, LazMarquez. If you want to see my work in entertainment, doing posters, Blu-rays, etc., www.lazmarquez.com. So, Matt, where can people find you when you're not getting a mohawk?
Oh, when I am not getting a mohawk, you can find me on Instagram on @1701 BLERD. I got my web series up there about a gay black nerd that uses Star Trek to cope with life. Stay tuned for episode 3. You can also find me on @MLJENN. That's my personal Instagram. I've got my link to Threads up there as well. And I'm also on TikTok as well on @1701 BLERD. Come find me. Say hi. Slide in the DMs. So, Shalimar, where can people find you when you are not kicking a dildo into a man's anus that is well-deserved?
Wow. Well, I don't know how you figured out my Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but
Me too.
oh my. Well, you can find me at Shalimar Luis, SHALIMARLUIS on Instagram, or at shalimarlewis.com or shalimarlewis.art if you need design or art services. That's what I do. And Mark, where can people find you when you're not digging into a secret family mystery going back decades and possibly Nazis?
Oh, I'm very inquisitive. So, yeah, that would be me. What's up with you? You all look like Nazis. You got a hidden past. You all kill a girl. Spill the tea. Okay. When I'm not doing that, you can find me over at All Good Things Podcast, where I talk Star Trek. You can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group. And you can find me over on BlueSky Social at MW207.
We would love to hear of what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group at the BQN Collective to continue our discussion there. You can also send your thoughts to @CinemaZPod on Twitter or BlueSky or both, and let us know if you'd like to recommend a film. Please follow the network on Twitter, BlueSky, and Instagram @BQN Podcasts.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcasts with our master feed by searching BQN.
At this time, we'd like to thank our associate producer, Amy Nelson. A special thanks to Laz Marquez for our show artwork. And the opening and closing music for this podcast is titled Dancing Dead and was provided by Ketsa from the Free Music Archive, providing royalty-free music for content creators.
If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We will add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy its green, Amy's math moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Man, thank you for doing that one. I normally get that one, and it's a mouthful.
Need a professional for that one.
Matt's used to a mouthful.
Yeah.
Word.
Look, times are getting tough, and I need to find a way to pay for getting all the Christmas gifts this year. So
Yeah, well, you're going to need content for your OnlyFans. So maybe it's just reading this over and over again, slower and slower, while delicately taking off your headphones.
yeah, and I don't know, folding some laundry.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or like making like a ham sandwich.
Yeah, or like, I don't like crumbling. I don't know.
Breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
Why not? It's
Listen,
appropriate. Thanksgiving.
I am not here to kink shame. Whatever you need to do to make your money, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll tune in next time.
I'm still thinking about Sex with Pennywise.
Oh, God. Pennywise in his true form, right? You know, he is an arachnid-looking creature.
You need at least 8 legs to please me.
Wow. Some people have high standards. Not here to kink shame. You know what you want, and that's okay. That's okay. Listeners, you know a man that can put up the bill. Please send him Mark's way.
Any webbing out of the anus?
Ooh, girl, how do I say this? Numi, right?
Rapus.
Numi. Sorry, say that again.
Rapus.
Numi raps. Ooh, girl.
Rapus.
Numi rapus.
Close enough.
Love you.
I'm sorry, I just keep hearing. Let's say it off to the side.
If you or anyone you've loved have experienced sexual assault, for support, contact the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-HOPE or the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-SAFE.